Hi all, we're going to have a look at a very long game of Fischer's in his memorable game book against Paul Keres. So Keres narrowly missed the chance at the World Championship match on 5 occasions. He's one of the uncrowned kings of the game and was actually nicknamed the Crown Prince of Chess. Fischer was white, kicked off with e4. This was in the Zurich 1959 tournament. e5, we saw a standard Ruy Lopez moves, which I really want to skip to because the instructive part of this game, I believe, is the endgame. So we have here standard Ruy Lopez stuff. The bishop coming to c2. Now black playing c5. Black gains some counterplay on the queen side by opening the c file. And this bishop looks to be a tactical vulnerability. Offset by that is this knight on a5. Bishop b7, so Keres is putting more pressure on the centre. The bishop has to move, losing a tempo, going to d3. After knight c6, now here Fischer sacrifices his d-pawn, so he's prepared to sack that rather than play d5, which positionally would weaken his dark squares. So he just plays knight e3 instead. After rook fe8, he now plays knight f5 and the bishop tucks away on f8. So that was one of the ideas, rook e8 just to tuck the bishop there. Potentially black's going to play g6 and bishop g7. So how does Fischer get an advantage out of this opening? Well, bishop g5 is now annoying. Black doesn't want to put back the bishop, so he actually moves that knight to d7. And now, after rook c1, it seems that white's preparing to tuck his bishop later to b1. So that would be nice on b1. So white's doing all right out of the opening with that idea of just temporarily sacking the pawn, which wasn't taken. So queen b8 now. After bishop b1, white has a pleasant position here. And Paul now takes on d4. And after taking, he does rook takes c1 as an intermediate capture. Bishop takes c1. And we'll note actually with this bishop takes c1, the queen is potentially quite dangerous using the g5, the g4 square. As we're about to see now with this tactical shot coming here. I wonder if you can spot it. Also, queen takes d4 wouldn't be a bad move according to Rybka, but what did Fischer play next? I'll give you 5 seconds. Okay, Fischer played knight h6 check. So temporarily giving up the knight, but he's shattered black's pawn structure. Look at these double pawns and this isolated pawn. So queen g4 check picks back the knight by taking on d7. And now we see bishop d5 resourcefully defending f7 using that pin on the e file. So Fischer plays queen f5 and now rook e5 was played and now queen f3, giving black a seemingly very aggressive move to put even more pressure on the centre, f5. Fischer though calmly plays bishop f4 and after rook e8 just queen h5, so offering the e pawn a real sacrifice. If f takes, then queen takes d5 though. So Fischer is forcing the e-pawn to be taken by a piece. So he's leaving black with this shattered pawn structure. After bishop takes e4, f3, black's only move now to protect e8 is to play bishop c6. And now Fischer switches the rook to the c file. So rook c1, quite annoying pressure. Bishop d7. So Fischer's got this choice now of either taking on h6 or f5. He chooses actually to take the h6 pawn. So I think one of his ideas is to weaken the dark squares by trying to get rid of this dark square bishop. That's why the preference, I believe, is for the h6 pawn. We see after rook e6, potentially black's got dangerous counterplay with rook g6. But this never really emerged in reality. After bishop takes f8, queen takes, Fischer now plays queen h4. So he's attacking that d pawn. And here black offers the exchange of queens. So we have a simplified endgame position now. And we see Fischer now centralising his king with king f2. Look at the pawn islands though. White has less pawn islands. And he's got clear compensation for being the pawn down. He's got nice control of the c file with rook coming to the 7th rank now. So rook f7. Now king e2. And now here, maybe Paul blundered with f4. He could have perhaps played king f6, just march his king to the centre. f4 is a bit committal, and in particular this h-pawn is a tactical target in some variations. So we'll see now, after rook a7, king f6, rook takes a6. So Fischer's equalised on pawns, and he's still got a lot of pressure. And look how diced black's pawn islands are. 4 pawn islands against white's 2. Rook e7, king f2, bishop e6, and now Fischer mops up another pawn. Rook takes d6. After king e5, rook c6, bishop d5. So Fischer's a pawn up here, and he's got still comfortable pressure with rook h6. Now rook c7, so black's taken over the c file. So both sides are gaining compensations which they're later using to win material. Rook h5 check, king d6, rook h6. Bit of repetition of moves here. Now finally rook f5, rook c1. Now Fischer has to deal with this rook counterplay. He plays bishop d3, and again we see a small repetition now of threats until finally Fischer decides rook g5. Bishop takes a2, and again we have temporary material balance. But Fischer gains the pawn now, so again a pawn up, but losing his b pawn potentially. So again, at the moment, material equal. Again, a pawn up for Fischer. Material equal, pawn up for Fischer. And now look at the f pawn. Now here, there's the instructive part of this is if the rooks came off, black potentially is sacrificing his bishop for this f pawn, because if the king can get to h8, it will be a technical draw. And we're going to see this technical draw echoed because Fischer is wary now, after winning the f pawn, not to play f5 too quickly. So just to explain it, f5 here, for example, just bishop takes f5, and if bishop takes, then king h8, and we have a technically drawn position, because say the pawn even marches to h7, the bishop is on the wrong colour to evict the king out of h8. So Fischer has to engineer f5 very patiently and slowly. First he establishes this nice advanced pawn on h6 and tries to occupy this diagonal, and now you'll see that he's again preparing f5, but first evicting the bishop to avoid this potential bishop sacrifice. So now f5 is brought in, followed now soon by f6, and after this f6 actually black resigned. So let's see why. What would Fischer have done? Let's give black some token moves. So the king could march to e7, and now bishop f7, followed by bishop e6, so f7 is threatened. And here, bishop d7, we don't want to play f7. So bishop e8, and now it's apparently a forced mate, because say the bishop moves, now f7. So that will be getting in this pawn move without the black bishop sacrificing itself. So this would be winning. So it needed a bit of patience on Fischer's part to win this endgame. Let's have a quick overview and summary. So it was a standard Ruy Lopez with Fischer shattering black's pawn structure with this knight h6 move, and he chooses later to sacrifice the e pawn, but he's got great structural compensation and chooses to win the dart squared bishop, winning the pawn to get the dart squared bishop, and he doesn't mind the queens coming off because this endgame was it turned out to be a nice mopping up job, but perhaps black missed some drawing opportunities. So it was quite a long game here, with this final phase seeing the march of white's f pawn, but in a methodical way, avoiding black sacrificing the bishop to reach a technically drawn position. So after f6, Keres had enough. I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave any comments on YouTube. Thanks very much.